Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Kat. So it's been almost 2 years actually since I left academia, meaning I graduated from my PhD program in the United States. And people started asking me, do you regret leaving academia, especially in this quite unstable macroeconomic environment? So I did a video on this as well. There are so many layoffs everywhere in tech especially, but also bio-related industries because, right, we call it biotech. Because of the unfavorable macro environment, many of my friends ask me, will you actually come back to academia because it's more stable? And on top of that, I'm not a US citizen or permanent residency holder, so I do face the challenge how to stay in the United States long term if let's say I was fired. Knock on the wood, that won't happen. But there are also the identity issues here. So people ask me, have you ever thought about actually coming back to academia? It's much easier to sponsor for a work visa, for example. There's no wait time for people like me, Chinese citizens, and many of my Indian friends also have similar concerns around the whole work visa or green card situation there. While staying in academia, that is definitely one of the biggest benefits, right? So there are many questions around that. So I want to use this video to share with you my perspective of if you should stay in academia, and do I regret leaving academia because of all the benefits actually I've never talked about on my channel. And I really want to share all these benefits to you because everybody has a different choice. So I want to use this video to share with you first, the benefits and advantages of staying in academia, and in what situations do you potentially prefer academia over other jobs, and finally some of my reflections on either staying or leaving academia. If it's your first time on my channel, I'm Catherine. I got my PhD in bio-related fields in the United States, and currently I'm a healthcare consultant. On my channel, I share with you, alternative career path, including consulting, medical science liaison, as well as my experience in academia. So if you're interested in those contents, please subscribe to my channel. And without further ado, let's get started. I want to share with you the benefits of academia from different aspects because, as I said, I was an international student and currently I'm on my OPT, which is a period of time that US government grants an international student to work temporarily for the company. As I mentioned in my intro, I do face similar situations as many of the international people here in the United States when it comes to the work visa and how to stay in the US, blah blah blah, all these headaches we have to deal with. And I think a lot of my friends, at least back when I was in academia, told me the reason why they chose maybe work in a lab either after graduation or as a technician because they want to actually get a green card. So let me give you just a quick summary on why that is the case. So let's say I got my PhD in the US. The maximum time that I can work without a formal work visa is 3 years. So this is the OPT I was talking about. And within these 3 years, you need to transition to an official work visa. And that could be a lot of different kinds. And the most common one is called H-1B. For H-1B, in the industry, there's a lottery-based system, and it is literally like it says, it's a lottery-based system. So you'll put your name into the system, and every March, which is this time of the year, they're gonna, pick your name from the lottery machine, and if you got selected, you will be granted H-1B sponsored by the company. So within these 3 years, it is not guaranteed that you're gonna be selected and get H-1B. So you could possibly, that not get H-1B and you have to leave or find other ways to get it. Another option a lot of, I would say, non-Chinese, non-Indians do is trying to apply for green card within this time. And then I have friends who are from, let's say, Korea or Taiwan. It's just very fast for them to get their green cards because the number of people that apply to green card is so few compared to Chinese and Indians. So there's no wait time for them to get a green card, and the fastest they can get the green card in 6 months, right? So for them, it's not a problem. But for especially Chinese and Indians there are just so many of us, right? We love to come to United States and find a better opportunity for us. We study, we're trying to stay. So there are just like millions of us. I have no idea the exact number. And then in that case, let's say every year, there's a cap of number of people that can be granted the green card. And we just have to wait. So for China, at least I know for Chinese, if I apply for a green card right now, I need to wait 2 to 3 years just to get into that process. So it's not gonna work for us, right? So we have to wait for the H1B, and it's just a headache as I've been dealing with this, and there is this possibility that I will not get the H1B, and it's just always there. So it bugs you. To me, I am a more optimistic person. I hope I will get it this year, but you never know. So for people who might, worry a lot more than I do, you might not want to choose this path. So many of my Chinese friends, as I mentioned, they stay in academia because they want to get a green card. Once they become the green card holder, they are free to switch to any companies, any societies, any agencies, or any type of jobs they want to do. And some of them, they even want to go to medical school and become doctor afterwards. I would say probably very, very few medical school actually accept international students. So it's, this whole identity thing, right? So staying in academia is great because if you want to do H1B, it is not lottery based, and you just you apply and you get it. So it's a very stable situation for people like us. Okay, so it might not apply to you if you're not from those countries, or if you're already a US citizen or have a green card. But I just want to share this aspect because many people don't think about this and they complain, right? Like especially my American friends, they will like, wherever you go, there are Chinese, there are Indians in the labs, and then it's kind of dominated by this. I'm like, there is this actual problem for us. If we can get a green card, I'm sure many of us might not want to stay. You never know, right? But this is one of the barriers for us to go to industry or just apply for startup, for example, because they might not sponsor for our H1B. It's the whole story. Like I don't want to actually talk too much about it, but I want to say like stability is a key factor when us decide if we would leave academia or stay. So besides that, all the other factors I'm gonna mention applies to everybody who, in academia right now. So first of all, it's really the stability and the status, right? So if you successfully become a faculty without a question, you are respected as a professor. Not to mention if you get a tenure, you are set for life, right? So as soon as you become associate professor, that's it. Like you don't even need to work that hard. It's if the worst happens, right? So that is really good, and a lot of benefits comes with it. For example, there was a senior postdoc in my lab, and then she got a faculty position in one of pretty prestigious university. And then she said, in the future, there are a lot of benefits when her kids go to the same university. There might be certain tuition get waived. It's just a lot of financial benefits there as well. And even before faculty, if you were a postdoc in a very well-funded lab, you are actually quite free to do a lot of research that you're interested in. Because it is well-funded, you don't have to actually help PI to get grant A, grant B, busy with writing the grant and support the lab. If you have a great idea, and then you can, just do it. You can do a screening if you want to. I would say the type of work that you do in the lab is very much like in the industry. And then you might be able to use some very cool technology, expensive equipment, because it is a well-funded lab. And you feel free to, explore your interest there. So that's the stability part of it. And additional benefits staying in academia includes many other hidden benefits, right? So you can complain, the salary in academia might not be the best because compared to industry, you might getting 50% of the salary if you're a postdoc or staff scientist level. But if you think about it, you can travel for free 2 times, 3 times a year for conferences, and you can choose conferences literally anywhere pretty much. Of course, the premises here is either you have a grant that supports you to go travel and go to all these conferences, or you're in a well-funded lab. The lab will basically support you on all these expenses, which is very common in academia. Okay, So, or you can go to Italy for a conference, you can go to Australia, pretty much within your postdoc or grad student time, you can travel around the world if you want to, right? If you don't have visa issues, okay? That's another thing just troubles me, which, I will not talk about it, I promise. So there are a lot of those hidden benefits, including, at least back when I was a graduate student, we had free meals, free breakfast for lab meetings, free lunch for this workshop, free dinner for this event. Just like there are a lot of things going on, and you can always get free stuff here and there. So the expense overall might not be as high as in a company. On top of that, you might be able to select a lab that is not in those super high cost of living cities, right? So for example, if you chose a lab in St. Louis, right, they do have good college and labs there, then the cost of living will be much lower if you choose a company in Bay Area or Boston, which is two hubs where there are the most opportunities. I don't have to mention that once you become faculty, the salary is pretty good. You are free to expense many things because it's very much like you're running a little startup, right? So as many of you, if you're watching all these TikTok financial education materials on the internet, if you have a company, you can write off a lot of things. It's kind of a similar idea in the lab. If you bought the iPads, you can say, I bought iPads for the lab, right, or for research. So those are all the hidden benefits that we barely think about, because all we focus is that, hardcore salary, and you think, academia just pays you so much less, but all these hidden benefits, you should also, think about it when you look at the whole package. And the next one I always said, which I always prefer, is flexibility. And I think that matters actually more these days, especially for Gen Z, which is the newest force that entering the workplace. They really care about those flexible hours, right? Because they don't want to actually follow the rigid 9 to 5, 9 to 6, whatever those hours required in most of the companies. They actually prefer, maybe they can come at noon and just leave at 8 p.m. or they can come at 6 a.m. and leave at 3, right? So different people have different schedule, and then they appreciate those flexibilities. And not only just Gen Zs, I know people who are like, say, 10 years older than me, they might be working in the lab, but they love the flexibility there because they can pick up the kids at 3 p.m. and then they can play with the kids, and they might be able to come back to the lab again after just to finish up some work. So those flexibility are allowed in the lab and probably not allowed in most of the companies. And lastly, I think very important, at least to me, is the environment, right? So people in the lab, typically, they're very smart because they have PhD, they have scientific background, they know the critical thinking part of it, they know what they're doing for the research, right? So typically, you are working with a group of smart people, and on top of that, at least back when I was a graduate student, everybody was super friendly. So it's a friendly, very positive environment. And you also could have some good scientific discussion. So enjoy going to the lab and have lunch with your colleagues, right? Share some of those good ideas. So you actually can become friends, right? Even now, after 2 years living in my lab, I still hang out with my old lab members. We are friends. So it's a very good environment. While when you work in a corporate, you know that typically the time that you interact, you will do some small talks. If somebody have kids, you have kids, you talk about the kids a little bit. You bond it in different ways. You might not hang out on weekends with your colleagues unless, let's say, you're from the same class, or you work very closely, and somehow everything clicks. But really, when you have some troubles in your life, you call your colleagues, right? It's a little bit different. So I would have to say, like, academia really provides a more friendly environment for you to actually find your lifelong friend. So now I want to talk about in what situation would you choose to stay in academia. First and foremost, if you love writing grants, if you love research, if you love mentoring people, if you have all these qualities, you should definitely stay in academia, okay? Please don't leave, because literally you're perfect for being a PI. and maybe the path towards it is a little bit challenging, which everybody acknowledge these days. But just be patient and do good work. You'll be a PI. And I believe as long as you love what you do, you're gonna do it well and you're gonna succeed one day. I mean, back in our lab, my old lab is one of the top labs in the country. It might take you, 6-7 years to get to a faculty position in another top college. But if you really love it, I don't think those things matters, right? Imagine, okay, let's say if you did a 8 years postdoc and then you got a faculty position in Harvard, right? I mean, and then let's say another 5-6 years you become associate professor, meaning you got tenure. So that'll be what, 13 years of your time? So let's say you got your PhD 30. How about that? 30 plus another 13 years, you're gonna become associate professor, tenured professor at Harvard or equivalent schools when you're like 45, let's say, right? And then from 45 all the way to whenever you want to retire, that's completely through your choice. It's a very good package if you think about it. So don't get intimidated by this kind of longer training and difficult path. If you love it, do it, okay? Don't get distracted. That's my advice here. But if you actually don't want to stay in academia because you might not like research, you might not like writing grants for whatever reasons, but you're an international student, you might face challenging situations getting employed in companies, you could choose to stay in academia for actually a few years to get your green card, then leave. Also, it could be, you don't like academia, but you couldn't also find another job in industry. So take your time, maybe do a 1 or 2 years of postdoc, right? And then during this process, you can accumulate experience, do some networking, really get to know what you want to do in the future, and then build on top of that, you will get a job. And academia is a very tolerant place that, you can stay there for a few years as a postdoc. Nobody's gonna say no for relatively cheaper labor in the lab, right? So that's a great place to not working, but also trying to land on an ideal job. Lastly, if you want to go to pharma, but like I said, you either cannot leave right now or for other reasons, the postdoc experience or like staff scientist experience in the academic lab can be very valuable time that you learn a new technique. You know another professor who's having his or her startup, like building your network in that way, go to more conferences, meet more people, present your work. All these can be accumulated during the postdoc time or staff scientist time. And honestly, being a staff scientist in a lab can be a pretty good job because you do get paid better than postdoc. You don't have that much pressure. You do have, flexible hours and all the benefits that I already mentioned. So I think everybody needs to think about what fits you the most at that time, right? Not to say like, oh, if I hate academia, I'm just gonna leave right away. You have to think about it. What's your long-term plan? Potentially stay in academia for a few extra years would help you long-term. So really think through the whole process before making a decision. Lastly, I'm going to answer the question, do I regret leaving academia? Well, the short answer is no. Obviously, if you've been watching my videos, I'm pretty happy being a healthcare consultant. And on top of that, as I mentioned, I don't really like writing the grants, even though I love research, but I also think about research. I'm a very curious person. I don't limit myself on one particular topic, which is what you do as a scientist in academia, right? You find that disease of interest, you find that pathway of interest, you find that protein of interest, and you really dig deeper and finding the mechanism and all that. But I think my interest is broader. I'm interested in pretty much all aspects of biology. So I can do pharma cases, I can do diagnostic cases, I can do cutting edge technology that can apply to the lab or just bio industry in general. I just have a very broad interest. So I think academia might not be the best for me. So that was my first criteria. Do you like academia? Do you want to stay? Do you want to be a PI? So that was not what I wanted. That is still not what I wanted now. I probably would not go back unless I absolutely have to. So the worst case, knock on wood again, hopefully that didn't happen, is, I don't get my work visa, I have to leave the country. I would say, like, if that happens, if I could stay in another country for another year and come back right after that, I probably would just still stick with what I do right now. But if I have to, if there's literally no way around it, if I don't go to academia, I have to leave the country, the opportunity is not gonna be good, blah blah blah. If all these consequences would happen, then I might just choose academia and get my green cards in a few years, and then switch back to become a consultant again. So life is unpredictable, as I have shared to whoever asks my advice on certain decisions. All you can do is control the part that you can control, right? A lot of things is out of hands. You cannot control tomorrow is a sunny day or rainy day. It's the same thing. I cannot control if I get my work visa or not next month, right? All I can do is, if that challenge arrives, then I make the decision that I think at that time the best for me, right? And that can be either going to academia or leave the country for some time before coming back again. So to me, again, I do not regret leaving academia. I'm doing the work that I love to do. I live in a city that I enjoy very much. I'm doing a lot of hobbies on top of work. I have very great work-life balance. It's a very fantastic time so far. So all I hope is I can get my work visa next month. Then I don't have to worry all about this. But that's just something I hope for. But if not, that's fun. Live the best of your life and choose the decision at a time you think is the best for you. Then do your best, and I think the future will be bright. So again, as I always said, follow your passion and do the best that you can within that field, and leave no regrets behind. It's your life. Nobody can make that decision for you. As long as you are responsible for your choice right now, that's all it matters, right? As long as you enjoy the life that you choose, that's all it matters. Control the part that you can control, okay? Hopefully this video will help you decide if you want to leave or stay in academia. And if you have further questions, please leave comments below. I will try my best to answer them as soon as possible. Well, hopefully you enjoyed this video. I will see you in the next one.